Cha-cha.
Any fruit or vegetable. Just stick in eyes, ears, and then the mouth. Potato head people look different every time you make
It's a freaking potato. I mean, it's a potato. It's not even a real potato. Whatever. You want to talk about that? Is that news to you, Shelly Brisbin? Hey, wait, hold on. Sorry. Everybody say hi to Shelly Brisbin. Good. Okay, Shelly, say hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
There you go. You know Shelly Brisbin because she's been on the show a number of times. You also know her as the host of Parallel. And that pause was only dramatic. That pause was not me trying to remember. It was just a dramatic pause right there.
Completely dramatic.
Yeah. So we'll talk about what Parallel is later this week. But the Mr. Potato Head kerfuffle. I'm sorry, the Potato Head kerfuffle. Yeah, is not your news to Shelly, is it?
It's not. No.
Okay. You want it to be?
Not particularly. I could riff on it, I suppose. Now, I'll have to be honest that when I was thinking about this segment, I did listen to a couple of recent segments, and I realized that there are some people whose science nerd game is a little bigger, higher, heavier than mine. So I probably should have stuck with Potato Head, but I did not.
Okay, well, we can talk about Potato Head, but we don't have to talk about Potato Head. Who by the way, is psyching you out now?
Let's see. That would be Allison and her quantum computing, quantum stuff. And I believe it was Brian talking about crypto, a subject which I have assiduously avoided, so I wouldn't have talked about it. But he had so much depth on the issue. I'm still avoiding it. I may understand it a little better than I did before, but still not my jam.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you should listen to Tom Merritt's show, Know a Little More. Not necessarily for crypto, because I don't know if he's done that. But, Know a Little More is his whole thing where you listen to his show and you know a little more. So, yeah, this show does not even try to do that. If that happens, it's an accident.
I appreciate your managing the audience expectations.
So what's news to Shelly this week?
So this is not obscure and scientific by any means, but I've dug into it quite a bit, so I'm just going to throw it out. Clubhouse. There's this social network. It's called Clubhouse. All the cool kids, all the cool kid tech bros, all the cool kid tech bro venture capitalists are into Clubhouse. But as somebody who fairly recently has gotten into it and has done some reading about it, the news to me part is the degree to which their security is both non-existent and shockingly bad.
Wow. Okay. Now, hold on. When you say you dug into it a bit, have you just been reading about it or have you actually participated? Okay.
I've been on it. I've actually done a podcast from within it. I've done some rooms. I've found people to hang out with, all that sort of stuff, because it's a new social network and you want to stay up to date with all the new things. So that's what I did.
You know, what's sort of terrible is about 3 weeks ago, and this is how fast, and I wish I had been more in tune to it. About 3 weeks ago, a friend of mine contacted me on LinkedIn, and she was like, "Hey, I've got an invitation to Clubhouse. Do you want to do it?" I was like, "Well, I don't know what that is." And she said, "Well, it's like and she said, you remember like the old like dial-in chat rooms, but like audio like on the phone or something?" And I thought, well, that just sounds like a sex line. I don't know what you're talking about still. And I said, "Can you give me a couple of days?" And she said, "Yes." And I just totally forgot about it. And now, of course, Clubhouse turns up all over the place. And I'm like, oh, see, I could have been there when it started, those 3 weeks ago.
The same thing happened to me with Twitter. I was invited in late 2006 to be on Twitter. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I don't care. Don't bother me. And then several months later, I jumped on. And I actually have a low Twitter number and a good username and all that kind of stuff. But I could have had an even better one, I guess. I don't know what that would buy me now, but yeah. So.
Well, you know what it buys you, actually. It buys you every now and then somebody tries to hack you for your one-word Twitter handle.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Don't tell them to leave me alone, hacker people. That's right. It has happened. Yeah, so Clubhouse is an audio-only social network, if you haven't heard about it or been on it. So instead of typing things to one another on Twitter or sending pictures on Facebook, on Clubhouse, you send audio to one another. The metaphor is called a room. So you get in a room with other people, you're all on your phones and you're speaking. The audio quality is good, but whether you call it an audio chat line or talk radio or like South by Southwest in your phone, I mean, there are all sorts of metaphors. Some people say it's going to be bigger than podcasting. Most of those people have investment in Clubhouse, but that's the idea. And it's been around for a year or so. It's venture capital funded. And the first thing they did was seed it with a lot of celebrities and VC types. So it has this sort of what I was saying before, tech bro, elite tech, crypto, billionaire wannabe kind of energy, which is not very appealing to me or a lot of people. But in the past few weeks, it's really blown up. It's an invitation-only network, and people have been sending out invites to friends and friends of friends, and so the network seems to have blown up in the past month or so. And even though it's been around a year or so, now it's got 10 million members, and people are realizing, hey, wait, the means by which people are invited is not ideally secure. The security of the audio chats is not great. There is no end-to-end encryption. So a lot of people are finally digging into sort of the details of Clubhouse now that, of course, we're all jumping on it. And the sort of top-line weird security thing that I think most people will take a pause at is that the way you get invited to Clubhouse is somebody has to essentially, I think they call it sponsor you, but you have to have their phone number in your contacts. And when you, as somebody who has Clubhouse invites, wants to bring somebody along, you have to give your contacts to Clubhouse. And then from that, you can search for the person that you want to give an invite to, and you have to have their phone number, and then they get a text message, and then they can join. So you've just given Clubhouse all of your contacts, and you have no protection or no way of knowing how those contacts are going to be used. And when you see the contacts again, it'll say something weird like, my doctor's office says 12 Clubhouse contacts. Well, I'm pretty sure that my doctor is not on Clubhouse and doesn't have 12 friends that are on Clubhouse. What that means is that 12 other people who go to my doctor probably also have that contact in their phone book. And that's how those are, so it gets really creepy really quickly.
So is the concern that these guys who had this idea that's maybe a good idea, maybe a bad idea, just didn't take the time to think about the security thing? Or is the concern that information is being harvested that people don't realize is being harvested?
I think it's the former. I think the latter concern is probably true, not in that specific instance. I think that the lack of specificity about what Clubhouse is going to do with your information or what protection you have is certainly an issue because they don't have a stated business model yet. And data and networks of who knows who are certainly valuable commodities. But the straight up transaction you're making, if you choose to invite, you can be on Clubhouse without sharing your contacts, but you can invite other people without sharing your contacts. So the straight up transaction you're making is if you want to be an inviter, that you're giving access to your contacts to Clubhouse. And I think that's enough for most people to sort of go, wait, let me think about that for a little bit. And then the ramifications of, hey, I might be allowing them to harvest my data, and also whatever it is that I do on Clubhouse can be seen by the community. If I'm in a room, it can determine and show to other people that I'm in that room and send out notifications that says, Shelly just joined Clubhouse. Do you want to join her? Oh, here on your buddy list, Shelly is in a room about crypto billionaires. Maybe you'd like to join her there. And I use that term because although it's not where I would be, it's fairly innocuous. I might choose to be in another room that would be perhaps a little embarrassing to me and may not want that information known. But Clubhouse users will know that through the notification system.
So there's no way to say your activities are private or anything like that?
No, there are private rooms. So you can create a closed room with just somebody else who you follow or who follows you. And then other people who also are followed and follow both of you can get notifications. But if you're in a big public room, everybody knows. And as I say, it's based on, it's based on who you're following and who follows you as far as the public rooms. If you want to have a quote unquote private conversation, you can do that, but because there's no end-to-end encryption and because some of the security issues with Clubhouse have involved harvesting conversations and posting them on third-party websites, you don't have any assurance that that private conversation will remain private. Clubhouse terms say that you're not supposed to record conversations without consent. That doesn't say anything about recordings being taken from you by some other means that the security protocol doesn't address.
Okay, that's kind of crazy, actually. So when it says that you can't record a conversation without somebody else's consent, is there a recording mechanism built in? Or no. Okay, that's
there is
good.
not. It's intended to be ephemeral audio conversations, and that's the only way you can communicate in Clubhouse. There's not a direct message. And in fact, that's kind of a problem for people who are connecting on Clubhouse. There's no back channel to say, hey, here's that link you wanted, or let's, take this offline somewhere. So
right.
People tend to connect to their Twitter bios or put their email addresses in their profile. So that's not a security issue. That's just an awkwardness issue. But the guideline, I know this specifically about recording because there's no mechanism within Clubhouse to do it, but I wanted to record a podcast and bring some people in and get their ideas about Clubhouse. And so I checked, and if you disclose, and there's a sort of a bootstrap protocol for disclosing, you either put record in the subject line of the room that you create, or you put little red dots, apparently is another way that people indicate it. Mm-hmm. And then when I was doing my show, would say regularly, if you don't want to be recorded, please don't come up to speak, because that's the metaphor too. There's a stage with speakers and moderators on it and an audience out there. And the audience doesn't have any way of communicating other than the fact that they're in the room. But if you're a speaker and the moderator allows you to be a speaker, then yes, you could be recorded, and you're supposed to disclose that if you're going to record.
When you say that some of the investors behind it, or some of the people behind it, or some of the people who are excited about it, who maybe are investors, when they say it's going to be bigger than podcasting, because that doesn't sound analogous. I mean, except that you're talking about people talking. I mean, if it's nothing you can hold on to and rebroadcast later or find later or anything like that, they're just likening it to podcasting because it's the spoken word.
Because it's audio mostly.
Yeah.
Also because of the metaphor of the audience and the speaking platform. And so it's more analogous to, say, a conference, like going to a South by Southwest panel than to a podcast. And I think also because they've seeded it with celebrities, people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, interestingly enough, have come over and done events and been speakers. The idea is that a lot of people in the tech biz who feel like they're not represented well by their appearances in the press, a lot of what the Clubhouse folks have been about is creating an alternate channel for people to communicate in just the way they want to. Hey, wait, can't they do that in podcasts? Why, yes, they could. Can't those recordings be saved and communicated later? Yes, they could. But the idea is they're trying to differentiate themselves. And just to sort of clear up the source of the money for Clubhouse. Andreesen Horowitz gave a whole bunch of money to Clubhouse. Mark Andreessen has been very active in Clubhouse rooms. I believe I found an article, I can't remember the exact pedigree, but Elon Musk, through some venture of his, has some interest in Clubhouse. But again, I don't know precisely what it is. But there's a lot of people who believe that the folks who have been the most excited about Clubhouse in the tech sphere have some financial stake in it. But again, they haven't yet stated what their business model is going to be, whether it's going to be straight up advertising or whether you're going to be selling tranches of user data. So that remains to be seen, which is, to be fair, that's most social networks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how is Twitter going to make money? Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah, right.
Right. And I think it's good that Zuckerberg is hanging out there too, because the guy's got a website, but really, if he wants to get the word out, a bunch of dudes just like him is probably the best place to do that.
Totally. In an ephemeral audio format that's not recorded.